Welcome back to Dating Intentionally. I'm Talia, and I'm sharing no-nonsense advice for navigating dating and relationships with confidence and ease, whether you've been dating for a while or you're just starting out. I believe dating can be fun, and I'm here to help you enjoy the process. Have you ever been on a date where you walked away thinking, okay, wait, they did not ask me a single question? Or maybe you're the person who has been told that you've come on too strong, so now you're holding back, waiting for the other person to make their moves. And then nobody ends up doing anything. Yeah, we're going to talk about all of that today because there's a lot of these little nuances in the way that we're dating right now. And today I'm talking with Mo Ari Brown. They're Hinge's love and connection expert and a licensed marriage and family therapist with over a decade of experience working with individuals. Because today I'm talking with Mo Ari Brown, Hinge's love and connection expert and a licensed marriage and family therapist with over a decade of experience working with individuals, couples, and families all across the LGBTQIA plus community. Mo works with Hinge to help daters build real, lasting connections on and off the app. And they just released Hinge's 2026 LGBTQIA plus date report, which is full of insights that I personally find fascinating, and I hope that you do too. So, we're going to get into the really interesting report and data about why all of the uncertainty in the world right now is actually making people dating more clear about what they want and the difference between signaling that you're emotionally available versus actually showing it. We also talk about the question deficit that is tanking first dates and why private displays of consistency matter way more than big grand gestures. So, I'm also all about the slow burn here. We're going to talk about slowmance and taking things at a pace where you can actually build something real and how to be direct about what you want without killing the vibe. So much good stuff in here. And at the end, we're answering a dating dilemma from someone who has a crush on her non binary friend and they can't tell it's mutual. By the way, I met my husband on Hinge. So it was really cool to talk to someone who actually works there behind the scenes. And it was awesome. If you have any comments, questions, thoughts, concerns, slide into my DMs on Instagram at dating.intentionally, drop a comment on Spotify, or shoot me an email at talia@datingintentionallypod.com. All right, let's get into it. Welcome, Mo, to the Dating Intentionally podcast. I'm thrilled to be chatting with you today all about all these insights from the LGBTQIA date report that just came out. But can you tell our listeners a little bit about your work and yourself first?
Yeah, thank you for having me. I am Hinge's love and connection expert. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I've been working with individuals, families, couples for the greater part of over a decade now. And so my work really has spanned work with people who are healing from sexual trauma to work with transgender people who want to get gender affirming care. So I've worked with a lot, all over the community, essentially, like with everybody from 3 years old to 70.
Wow. That's impressive. That's a lot.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's been a beautiful, meaningful work, and so then I'm excited about my work at Hinge. At Hinge, I get to take all of that expertise and knowledge that I've learned over the years and offer me what I feel are meaningful insights and advice for daters on and off of the app. So we really at Hinge focus on helping people to get off of the app into like meaningful relationships and build lasting connections. So I'm just another part of that work.
Yes, and I mean, your work has impacted me. I met my husband on Hinge. We have a wonderful relationship.
Oh, beautiful. So excited to hear that.
Yeah, I use Hinge the most of any app when I was dating, and I met lots of wonderful people on that app, men and women. They're great.
Oh, I'm excited for you. I would love to hear more about those experiences.
I mean, I'll give you the overview real quick. Like, I treated the dating apps as an experiment. I met as many people as possible in my journey just because I wanted to practice dating and kind of get build my own insights. I basically did my self-study, right? I
Yeah.
tracked everything. I was paying attention to my patterns. I really wanted to date intentionally to find someone who is secure and emotionally available and a great match for me. So it did require a lot of dating, which is why I have this
Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah, that's a very, like, educated approach, very intellectual, but also, like, I imagine it's an emotional journey too. You learned a lot about yourself in that process and
Yeah.
what it means to be in relationship with you, which I think I'd love for more daters to understand.
Yes, I think dating is a great process to learn about yourself, and I was in therapy pretty much that whole time. I've been in therapy for a long time, so I was able to just really squeeze all the juice out of my experience. And as a nerd about dating, I just wanna get into this report, which was all about the LGBTQIA kind of, like, priorities and what like, kind of what they care about, how they're dating, and I thought it was just so, so, so fascinating. And obviously the biggest thing that stood out to me, which I think the report focused on, is that in a time of uncertainty, when the world is just kind of a mess right now, it makes daters more certain about what they want. So can you unpack this a little bit? Like, what's going on with that?
Yeah, we did just, release our 2026 LGBTQI+ date report. "Clarity builds chemistry" was the theme, and I think you hit the nail on the head. In a world where daters are feeling uncertain, maybe about the world externally, and so whether that is, like, the things that impact LGBTQI+ daters on a global scale, or if they're feeling uncertain about the stage that they're in their lives or their finances even. What we're hearing from daters is that LGBTQI plus daters this year is that that level of uncertainty definitely can make dating feel more confusing. And at the same time, what it has shown us is that for daters, it's also clarifying their boundaries, what they want out of those experiences. For many daters, it ends up showing them values alignments, comfort and identity end up being very important factors that they're already exploring early on in dating because of that need for certainty, for emotional safety up front, to feel more secure in the connection.
Yeah, I mean, I think it kinda makes sense in a lot of ways because when we can't control really what's happening in the world, like, we have very little control over that, but then it's like we ha the our dating lives feel a little bit closer to our sphere of what we can control, and I feel like we wanna ground ourselves in that more when things feel really off kilter for so many people. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I think emotional safety is so foundational to relationships in general that it makes sense that when we're feeling that level of uncertainty or where times feel a little bit more confusing, that we lean more into creating solid foundations in relationships so that our relationships or the places where we come home feel peaceful,
Yeah.
feel celebratory, disarming, rather than having to also armor up at home.
Yeah, this question just popped in my head, but it's like, what do you make of this whole attitude that I feel like a lot of my clients and listeners have, where it's like, if they lose their job or if something is going on in their lives that's out of their control and things are have been really shaken up in their lives, they feel like they can't date because they're like, oh, like I'm not stable. I'm wondering if like queer daters have that based on the report, or like if that's more of like a not queer thing. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that daters, definitely for LGBTQI plus daters too, that that kind of like uncertainty makes it harder to feel like date they're ready to date. And so we're definitely seeing that from daters that we survey globally. And I think that's wisdom that we should definitely be listening to when we feel unstable, then we are not able to date from a solid foundation. And so whether what we're feeling as instability is actually happening or not, we have to like address that first so that we feel like we're dating from a place that's like solid. Or else the things that happen during the dating process, like heartbreak or other challenges, feel even more complex and painful.
Right, it just, like, piles on. It's like you're dealing with stuff
Absolutely.
that's not at all related to dating, and then you have a situationship that falls apart, and it's like you just feel like your whole world is crashing down. So do you think people who are, currently, like, facing any kinda instability right now, do you think they should take a break from dating, or should they, like, go in with caution? What do you think?
Yeah, I think that they should first assess whether or not what they're feeling can be managed or, like,
Mhm,
let's say, work through or integrated. Let's say if it's like a financial thing, maybe they feel on an intellectual level, I don't have the resources I want, so I shouldn't be dating. But we know that there are plenty of dates that we can engage in that don't cost a lot of money, or, there are ways in which we can date that are, budget friendly, and so then I would say to them, maybe if we explore with our creativity a little bit more, there's an opportunity to date. But then I think for other people, if the barrier is truly like emotional and we just don't feel ready because of where we are or because of what's happening in our lives, we feel more insecure or we don't feel like we can give people our best or we can give people our attention,
mhm.
then I think we're in territory where we should take a pause and really reflect on what dating requires and whether we can offer that to the space.
Yeah, I love the way you broke that down because I get so many questions from people who are like, "I lost my job," or I'm unemployed, like, "Should I keep dating?" And my advice is always like, if you are showing up as someone who's, like, trying to address that, like, you have a plan, you have an idea of what you're doing, and you're not just wallowing or, like, stuck, like, that's still an attractive quality, like, you don't need a job to be attractive necessarily, as long as you have an ambition, just something you're working towards, even if it's, like, a volunteer opportunity or, like, maybe you're going all in on helping your parents and you're just living with them, whatever. As long as you're doing something with purpose, like, that's, I think, good enough. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
There's something to be said about being in process. I
yeah,
think it's a beautiful counter to what I think we're often told about dating and relationships that we have to be ready,
yeah.
and ready feels subjective.
Yeah, it's so subjective.
Yeah. But we often get told ready means these very finite things. But from person to person, we see that like readiness is really about our mindset. And so actually in the report, we surveyed LGBTQI plus daters about what settling down really means to them. And by and large, we found that LGBTQI plus daters feel like settling down is more of a mindset
Yeah.
than these finite things.
So I wanna get to that because I did have some questions on that, but I
Yeah.
also wanna talk about from the report, it was super interesting, all about showing, not telling in your dating life. So in this report, it's talks about, like, signaling versus embodying healthy behaviors in dating, and what I got from that is, like, signaling is talking about it, like, "I'm emotionally available," but embodying is actually showing up as emotionally available. So can you talk
Yes.
about just your findings there? Because I found that so fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. So with the show Don't Tell dating, we found that LGBTQI plus daters have been slowing down in the dating process overall. So like in 2024, we had a report and we focused a lot on slowmance, which was really about taking our time to get to know one another. And what we found for daters this year is that there's a huge shift that's happening around timelines. So whereas people might have dated in like a very okay, in 3 months we'll know that we want to be exclusive, in 6 months or 8 months we'll know if we want to move in together. Those timelines are kind of going away, and what we're seeing daters doing more is focusing in on the smaller ways in which relationships get created or stable foundations get created. And so we're in the report, we call some of that private displays of
I
consistency,
love
and
that.
those yeah, I love it too. And those are those small ways in between dates that help to build the foundation of the relationship, like the text that says, I was thinking of you, or actually just scheduling times in between dates to check in with one another. Um, and we also found from daters that PDA offers a lot of reassurance, smaller gestures around PDA actually, like for the LGBTQI plus community overall, uh, standing closely to one another, like shoulder to shoulder ends up being like what 79% of daters said was their favorite PDA.
Well, I really love that section of the report about PDA. I can understand how meaningful that is for queer daters, where it's like you don't know in public if it's safe to show affection, and so I can see why even just standing close to each other is so, like, grounding and, just heartwarming and would make someone feel all the good feelings. It can be just as small as that. I think that straight daters can take that as well. It's like, just, being in that close proximity can do so much to signal and show that you are into someone, and then and to not be nonchalant about it, which also we talk about in the report. But yeah, I love that. But back to the show don't tell piece really quick. So you gave some examples of like what that would mean and the private displays of consistency, the texting. What other signs do you see like with someone who's showing it, not just saying that they're ready?
It's a really great question. So in the report, we asked daters a similar question. They said that there were these ways of embodying the PDC, so the private displays of consistency, that really meant more or showed them that the person was really emotionally desiring them early on. And so 89% said that that person shows curiosity about their life. And that was one that really stood out to me because we talk about asking questions, but there's a way in which curiosity shows up ongoing that's like, hey, how are you been? What was your week like? How are you feeling today? That really feel rich. And then making time for someone was what 85% of daters said is like, if they make time for me in their schedule, we know we have like busy lives, but if they're consistently making time, that feels like emotional safety. Then the third one was that they check in between dates. As 79% of daters said that. So going from date to date is great, but if we let the communication lapse in between there, then daters are reading that as a form of like emotional instability.
I love how simple this is that you just broke it down. Like, the 3 things are so simple. It's making time, it's caring about their life,
Yes.
and checking in between dates. And if you can like, people listening, if you can do that, you are showing up better than probably most people in the dating pool. Like, those basic things are doing so much.
We often think it has to be these big gestures. I am a Leo sun, and so
Oh, really?
I'm like, that's me too. I'm talking about myself. We think it's these big gestures when really what daters are telling us is that if we slow things down and we just focus on the little things that make a relationship full, we're actually doing way more than planning the most elaborate dates every other week or whatever. Those things in between are the things that people are longing for, clinging to, chewing on in between days,
Yes.
remembering, talking to their friends about.
Yeah. No, the little things really add up, and I think that I always say dating is like a training ground for a relationship because that does carry into the relationship. You need to keep doing the little things every single day, which is way more sustainable and, let's be real, affordable, than your grand gestures. So,
Yeah.
I think one frustration my listeners have with the show don't tell concept is that they're showing up and they're really putting in the work to date intentionally, but they're not getting it back. And so then they feel like they have to kinda date from the back foot of like, I'm not gonna show too much until they show me first, and then no one shows each other anything. So what do you make of
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, I know that's like a challenging place to be in our dating landscape where it requires vulnerability to keep showing up, putting ourselves out there and not know if we're going to be met. And what I say to that is first, like empathy. Like I just have so much empathy for that experience because I sit with so many daters who are feeling this vulnerability, and some of them do show up like that, as in, like, they show up like the person who is not necessarily meeting the other person, because they're afraid of what it means to really fully be seen, or they're afraid of being too much, and so after I empathize, what I really wanna say is that I know at the core of everyone's experience, sitting with a lot of humans over the past decade plus, that everyone has this deep desire to belong, to be seen in their authenticity, to really be received in love. And so if you're dating someone and they're showing up in this very invulnerable way, that desire for belonging hasn't gone away. Um, Unfortunately, though, we are in a time where many of us haven't developed these particular skills that we need to show up authentically and still let ourselves shine. And so we see a lot of people kind of leaning out when even when you're leaning in and you're saying, "Hey, it's safe. It's okay to be yourself." Um, Unfortunately, it's taking a little bit more in this time to overcome those fears. And many of us didn't get those tools. If we really think about the way connection has evolved, many of us met people, I think let's say 30 or 40 years ago, we would have met people through our social circles, our acquaintances. We would have primarily met them in some comfortable way. So now we're
Mhm.
meeting total strangers that we may not have a connection to, and we're doing something radically different than our parents did. So don't be hard on yourself, is what I also want to say. We're doing something so new, and we're broadening our dating pool.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love that answer. And I especially love what you said about that the person who maybe isn't showing up consistently or they're scared, they want belonging too. We all have that core need. And I think it's really important to remember, even though it's annoying to deal with people
Yeah.
in the dating pool who are just not like making time, they're not consistent. It's like
Yeah.
deep down, they want the same thing. They're just maybe not as ready or they're just scared.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We're going to take a quick break here, and then I have so many more questions. Okay, stop what you're doing and listen up because Balesa and I are giving away free spicy toys or gift cards to every single one of you. That's right, everyone who signs up wins something. We're all winners thanks to Balesa. And if you haven't heard of Balesa, let me put you on. They're a by women for everyone company that's completely flipping the script on sexual wellness. Balesa toys are made from medical grade body safe silicone and can come in sleek travel friendly charging cases, which are way better than keeping them loose in the drawer for someone to find. Oops, guilty as charged. You've definitely seen Bellesa's viral toys all over your For You page, like the rose. It blew up for a reason. This little flower shaped suction toy is iconic. Or their famous Whisper collection, the first ever fully silent vibrators, which is amazing if you share your space and appreciate a little extra privacy and peace of mind. Shipping is next level discreet with an unmatched warranty program, 1 year no hassle replacements, plus a 10-year quality guarantee. If your dog destroys your toy, Balesa will send you a new one in exchange for a photo of your dog. We love that. Of course, I had to hook all of you up, so my friends at Balesa and I are sending out free toys or gift cards to everyone who signs up. You heard that right. Every single one of you wins something. Just click the link in the episode description or head to bbvibes.com/datingintentionally. That's bbvibes.com/datingintentionally. Welcome back. So we have a lot more to get into. Mo, I want to talk about chalants because we were just talking a little bit about, how people show up. Can we talk about chalant versus nonchalant dating? Like,
Yeah, absolutely.
what did the report find on this?
Well, we didn't necessarily call it this in the report, but I think in culture overall, I've been hearing way more about people wanting people to chalant them, like wanting people to. I know, right? We're creating vocabulary in real time, wanting their dates to actually. Show effort, show that they care, show that there is a thought behind the way in which they're approaching the relationship. I love it. It really speaks to the title of the report that clarity builds chemistry. I think one of the ways that we can show up more chalant is by being clear about what it is that we desire and let that clarity not just show up in what we're saying, but in how we are being in the relationship. And so, what it might look like to show up chalant for our LGBTQI plus Hinge daters who did this survey this year. It might look like those PDCs. It might look like consistently planning a date after you have just gone on one with one another.
Mhm.
It might look like standing very closely, even if that feels very vulnerable. For gay men, 84% said that their favorite PDA, actually their public display of affection, their favorite was hugging. So that might look like chalants in
Right.
2026 for gay men. And then for lesbians, 94% said that they prefer hand holding. So that's an example.
I love it, and again, super simple, like, this isn't crazy grand gestures or anything that's really out of the box. And you know what's interesting? Like today's dating landscape, if it's full of nonchalant daters, I feel like a little chalance goes a long way.
It does.
Like just a little
It
bit.
absolutely does.
I
It really, really does effort.
also love that you use chalance as a verb.
Yeah,
I never heard that.
absolutely. Shalant shalant me. That's a that's what I've been hearing a lot, in pop
Oh my
culture.
gosh. It's so funny. I also wanna talk about something in the report that I noticed was, the question deficit. What is the
Yeah.
question deficit? What's going on there?
Yeah, so when we surveyed Gen Z women and asked them, "Are your dates asking enough questions?" They were like, "Absolutely not." And then when we asked, Gen Z men, "Are you asking enough," and these were heterosexual daters, if you're we asked Gen Z men, "Are you asking enough questions on dates?" They're like, "Yes, we totally are, but my our dates are not asking enough questions." So it showed us that there's a overall desire for more thoughtful questions, and that there is a desire for depth early in dating experiences for Gen Z daters. But when we polled Gen Z men, the number one fear that they cited for why they don't necessarily go deep early on is a fear of being too much. And so they're
Oh.
like wanting that depth, but they're afraid that they're going to be read as doing too much.
Yeah, that is really interesting, and I also just wanna point out that this finding is not exclusive to Gen Z daters. I hear
It's
from
not.
people all over, different ages, different sexualities, like, this is happening everywhere, and I am baffled by this because I feel like questions are like, how else do you get to know someone and what they think and, like, what they're about? It's just so obvious, so it's so interesting that we're, like, losing questions, something that everyone wants and feels like no one's getting enough of. It just is
Yeah.
baffling to me. What are
Yeah.
some of your favorite questions, to ask, like, maybe on a first date or just early on?
I have multiple sides to my personality. I think that everybody should just be multifaceted. It really depends on the mood. I might start with a question. I always start with curiosity. I think a question that invites them to really tell you more about themselves. So it might be like, what's the last thing that made you laugh until your stomach hurt? Might be the question.
It's a good
Or
one.
I'm Thank you. Or if I see something funny on their profile, I might attempt to try to make them laugh. So I might start with a joke that is, of course, not teasing them, but joking about something that they're saying that would get them to to feel my lightness and my playfulness early on. So I think a question like if they said that they love coffee on their profile, which a lot of people do, or if they on their date ideas, like there's a new feature on Hinge that's called Date Ideas. You've heard about it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, where you can suggest a date. Let's say that they said coffee date. I might say, "What was your coffee order again?" As
You're
like
right.
a cute intro, but just like it's curious. Everybody wants somebody to make them their coffee order. Remember, it's a nice, gentle way of starting a conversation.
I love this idea of, like, almost like you're going into a date as if you already know each other. You're asking questions
Mm.
of like, "Oh, yeah, remind me, like, when was your birthday?" Or like, I think that's kind of that's pretty playful or like, "Clearly, we've never talked about this before, but I'm gonna, act like we have," and that's really cute. What about for maybe, like, if people want more depth, what's a question you can ask for more depth?
The rule of thumb for, I think, the difference between curiosity and like that interrogation or interview style question, the rule of thumb is that a very curious question will leave them saying more than yes or no or like a one word. If it could just have a direct answer, the question probably isn't expansive enough to get them to start a conversation. And so I think a curious question that could invite depth might be I like to ask people their their favorite memory from summer or something that one will make them smile. So then they're smiling at something I said. So then we're making a connection. But it also invites the conversation. So that's like the rule of thumb. You can't go wrong with a question that opens them to talking more about themselves.
Yeah, no. I love that. I love what you pointed out about, like, making a question that would make them smile, asking something positive,
Mhm.
and something that would yeah, like, that is it's like, "Oh, you wanna know my favorite memory? Oh, like" you know,
Yeah.
that's kinda hot. I like that a lot. So, listeners, like, I hope that this advice inspires you just, like, if you think you're asking enough questions, ask more. You're probably not. And it's you're not too much, especially for the guys listening, like, you're not too much for asking a lot of questions, like, the ladies want the questions. We want
Mhm.
them.
Definitely, it shows interest. It is like the biggest way to be chalant. So I'm like, women want chalant men. So it's like if you're
Yes.
being a chalant guy, then you are someone who is being deeply curious, ongoing. And
Yeah.
I think when we're in relationships long term, it keeps things fun and spicy when we're constantly allowing ourselves to stay curious about our partners. That's advice that I'd share with anyone about relationships long term, is that if we can stay curious, it's like we're in a relationship with a new person every few years because they really are growing and evolving. Nobody stays the same in relationship.
Yes, just another point towards dating being a training ground for relationships. And I think that applies to friendships too. Like, get curious about your friends, your family. Just like it's such a wonderful way to continue to deepen any connection in your life. I want to talk about something we mentioned earlier, which is slow mans, which I actually didn't hear that term until I read the report. We're all about the slow burn on dating intentionally. Like, that is something we talk about a lot, and a lot of my listeners want to embrace the slow burn. So, tell me about just, like, what you discovered in the report about slow mans this time around.
Yeah, well, I would really love to ask you a question for
Oh, yeah.
clarity. I'm wondering what ends up being the challenge for people when they're trying to lean into slow mans, but they can't really get into the slow
Oh
burn.
my gosh. I bet you could guess, Mo. It is that they hit it off really quickly with someone, they have a great connection after, like, maybe a dry spell of having no one they've ever met that they liked, and then it's like, it just things end up happening. It's like we ended up sleeping together, we ended up spending a week together, we ended up driving across the country after a week of knowing each it's like, okay, you didn't end up doing that. Like,
Yeah.
um that's I think the big one of the biggest challenges, and also the other side of it is, um, it's the seems to be a Band-Aid for uncertainty, right? To speed through the early stages so that you get to the commitment so you feel better.
Ah, yes. Okay, this makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate you sharing that because it's like in that I'm hearing, and I think the report will be really good for anybody going through this. But in what you just said, I'm hearing uh, two things that people are really like enjoying the feeling their way through the process of dating. And they're still wanting to create some type of like solid foundation, but that kind of gets sped up when the feelings are like intense or they ended up finding someone that they liked and they weren't expecting it.
Mhm.
Um, and so I encourage you, anybody who's like in this kind of relationship dynamic, to keep feeling your way through and prioritizing the things that would build that solid foundation. And so I think we can go back to the PDCs here. Continue to pour into the relationship in between dates, in between cross country trips, in between like these really fast paced moments, and find moments to slow down together. That means to just check in about the relationship. I've had my share of fast-paced, love,
We
I
all
don't even
have. Yeah.
yeah, these moments really can take our breath away, take us by surprise, and they're beautiful if we can slow down and check in. Well, how is this going? Does this pace feel good? Are we, um are we growing together? Are we staying with what our goals are? Um, check in about whether or not this is sustainable. If we can slow it down in that way, then we know that the pace, we're going at a pace that we can continue to thrive in.
Yes, yes, I love that advice, and also one quote I pulled from the report that I loved is, this advice from the report, which is something you could say to someone if you are trying to have slowmance, and that is, "I move," like, you can say, like, "I move slower, what would help you feel more secure along the way?" Like, I love being able to get ahead of this, so it's not like you're retroactively adjusting the pace, you're like, "Hey, this is how I move. What do you need? Like, what can I do to help you feel more secure because I'm slower in connecting with someone or, like, getting into a relationship." I love that
That's
advice.
great. Yeah, I appreciate you bringing that forward because that reassurance really goes a long way. I think at least 30% of LGBTQI plus daters told us that reassurance is really affirming and what they're needing during these times. And so I I'm all for it. I'm like really grateful that you brought that forward.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing nonchalant about reassurance, like, the
Absolutely.
reassurance is, I think, another form of private displays of consistency is, like, reassuring. It's like, "Hey, I really like you. I'm not ready for the next step yet, but I really like where this is going." I mean, I had that with my husband when he asked me to be his girlfriend. I wasn't ready. Like, I was like, I'm not there yet, but I appreciate you sharing that." And, luckily he didn't get scared off by that.
Yeah, that's a beautiful example of how emotionally safe reassurance can be. Especially when you're trying to find the right pacing and you're still getting to know each other. It can make you feel that you're out of step without that reassurance. With the reassurance, though, you're able to see that their pace isn't like a sign that they're less invested. It's not a sign that they're too hesitant and that they're gonna run away. I think in the age of what we call a Hinge DBL, so digital body language, we're used to interpreting what people mean in relationships. So we're used to like reading whether or not they put a period as a signal of whether or not they're interested or whether or not they have enough emojis or whether or not they said one word. All of these things mean something and we're used to interpreting, but I'm asking us to move, and then that's what the report is asking us to do, is to move toward more visible, audible, vulnerable, small displays of reassurance.
Yes. I love that. Oh my gosh, digital body language. I feel like I have heard that somewhere, but I just, like, it's so true that it's a thing. You mentioned earlier about the relationship escalator and how queer daters are hesitant. They don't wanna do the whole, like, "Okay, 3 months, we get into a relationship, a year we've been together," like, and it's so interesting because my listeners love hearing about the relationship escalator. They want those benchmarks. It makes them feel like, "Okay, like, by this time, we should be doing this, and by this time," and I get the, like, comfort in that. It's like, "Okay, like, you have a benchmark." But, okay, for the queer daters who are out there, they're just figuring it out on their own. Like you mentioned earlier, like, they get to define what settling down means. How can people start having these conversations? Like, what does that look like if you're like, "Well, we get to define what settling down means to us."
Yeah, ooh, that's a good question. I think early on, find playful ways of asking questions about how someone views their future. So an example of that might that I think is less a question that might not feel like you're rushing could look something like, when you think about like long-term relationships, what kind of dynamics or relationships really work best for you, or how often would you want to even see someone when you're dating them, you've been dating them for a while. These kinds of questions start to get at uh, pace long term, what their life might be made up of in a long term relationship. And then further down the line, when you really are at the point where you should be asking these questions and getting clarity, I think clarity, directness is very important. Too much gets like lost in translation, lost in the translation between the head and the heart, let alone like when you start communicating between people. Too much gets lost when we're not very direct, as in, and when I say direct, I mean starting with what we want first. Sometimes we ask a lot of questions of other people. Well, what are you thinking about our
Right.
relationship future? And we don't lead with our own vulnerability. So then that person's like, well, what are they thinking? What should I respond? Like, what does this mean? And you could be thinking, I want to be with you. And they're sitting there hoping that that's what you mean. Now, if you were clear, then nobody has to hope. Everybody knows. And then you get what you want.
So I agree, like, where I'm all about clarity and just, again, directness is I always say directness is kindness. And, but I think that the reason that people avoid directness and that kind of clarity, the language around clarity, is because when you do that, you are risking the whole thing. Like, you're basically laying your cards out, and when you're direct, they could be like, "No, actually, I don't want that." And when you're ambiguous, when you're not saying it, when you're vague, you don't risk that at all. So it's like you get to keep what's what you have, but you never get to that, "What are we? What's going on?" the clarity moment because it's, like, so scary to risk it. So I wanna call that out because I think that's, like, a real reason people don't do this.
Yeah, and I really empathize with that, and I feel like for people who reach the point where the ambiguity doesn't serve them, then they are the ones that really have to ask because then they don't get what they want either way, and so you tend like, when you're at the point where you're like, "I know I want this kind of relationship with them, and staying in the ambiguity is hurting me," then I'm like, I want you to be very, very clear. For other people who are really okay with where things are, that's what I'm hearing too in what you're saying. Some people are just cool with where they are. They don't wanna push it further. Then I'd say then it makes sense to be okay with where letting things kind of, unfold.
Right.
But yeah.
I think a lot it's hard for a lot of my listeners specifically for the letting things unfold because they wanna find a partner, they wanna build a life with someone and probably have a family or whatever it is, and so it's like that, that's why I think, again, directness wins in this game.
Mhm.
If you have something that you're building towards in dating. So I hope that this encourages listeners to be a little bit more direct. Mo, we are gonna get into our dating dilemma. Are you ready?
I love that. I'm ready.
Okay, quick break, and then we'll get into it. Mo, I am really excited to get into this dilemma, and for anyone listening, you can submit your dating dilemma in the show notes. There's a link there. Thank you to everyone who submitted. We love reading these. Okay, here we go. I, 24 female, have a crush on my friend, 22 non binary, and I'm not sure if they're flirting with me. When we hang out one on one, we always end up play fighting, teasing each other, and interacting in ways I don't do with any of my other platonic friends, mainly instigating physical contact. However, when we're not together, they can sometimes take days to reply, and I feel like I'm putting in more effort into arranging the next meetup than they are. We don't text about anything other than when we should meet again, and although the texts they do send are always enthusiastic about hanging out, I'm worried that the inconsistency means they see this purely as a friendship. I know the simplest way to get an answer is to ask them what their intentions are. I have thought about saying something like, when we hang out like this, I feel unsure because I don't interact with my other friends this way, so I just wanted to know what it means for you. What's stopping me is the worry that if it's purely platonic, that they'll feel awkward and our current friendship and dynamic will be affected. So I'm fine with either outcome and I have fun when we're together and I would like to keep spending time with them either way. It is just the fear of changing our current relationship which is holding me back. Should I risk asking them?
Ooh, this is a good
Yeah, there's a
question.
lot going on here that I think relates a lot to our conversation.
Yeah, a really great question.
So what's your take?
Mm. It really is, so I start with it depends because I really want to know, I would want to know how they started their connection, like, if they started with, like, a purely friendly vibe, and then it kind of grew, or if it was like you just met anyway, so it could be anything. Now, I'm leaning towards it's probably has some potential, and that's what relationships are when we first meet people. They often have the potential to be anything that they want to be, and that's what you're feeling is like the unlimited possibilities there. So I don't think you're following you trust your intuition that there's probably a vibe happening if you're feeling the vibe. Um, and I love how honest you were with us about not wanting the relationship to change. I think if you are going to take that step and have that, ask them how they're feeling about the relationship, that you say that out loud. It really helps to know, hey, I don't want our relationship dynamic to change if you're not interested. However, I've been really enjoying how we are when we're together in person, and I'm really wondering if you've been feeling like this is more romantic than platonic too.
Yeah.
Um, yes, keeping your feelings in there helps for them to be more at ease. Whenever you're asking a question like this, if you only lead with what they're feeling, it puts them on the spot to be like,
Right.
I don't know if I should say it because what if she's asking because she doesn't want this? And I notice people shut down more. So when you lead with your real feelings and intentions and your desire to take care of the friendship first, then it creates like less weirdness later. Usually people are, like, so comfortable with these kinds of conversations.
Yeah, I love that advice, and I think I wanna tell this listener to trust your gut on this, like, if you're like, "I don't do any of this stuff with my other friends," like, trust that, okay? Like, maybe there is a vibe. Just because there's a vibe doesn't mean it'll turn into a long-term relationship that'll last. Maybe it's like you have a flirtatious friendship with someone, or maybe you go on a few dates and realize, "Okay, actually, this isn't it." But I totally agree with your advice of, like, and I love the framing of sharing your confusion, like, being a little honest, like, "Hey, like, I know this is weird, but I feel like there's a vibe," you know, and I kinda want there to be one. I don't know, where do you stand?
And I
Um,
love how you just said it because you said it in a very, like, chill way, but still vulnerable. Like, I feel like there's a vibe that's still vulnerability, and
yeah.
so do what you just said
Yeah, thank you.
because, you took all it doesn't need all of those words
Yeah, it
unless
doesn't have to
that's
be so
naturally
serious.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I agree, be authentic, but it's like, it doesn't have to be a serious conversation. I always recommend people do this over in person, over not over
Yes,
text, but I do think
absolutely.
if it's too scary to do
Yeah.
in person, like, fine, texting is acceptable. The other thing is just, like, I would always see this as an opportunity to get closer to someone, you know, no matter how it pans out, it's like you're actually showing your feelings, and then you create a space for connection, which is awesome. And if that person, like, for some reason shuts down or gets the ick, even platonically,
Mhm.
I don't know, and it's like you kinda learn, like, okay, they can't
Mhm.
even handle, like, a mature conversation about our feelings.
Truly, truly. Yeah, and ultimately, they should be flattered. If they're not
Yeah.
flattered on the other end of you saying you like them, I'm side-eyeing them, like, "Why are we
Yeah.
acting like that?"
I totally agree. Well, I appreciate your answer so much. What I wanna hear from you is, like, what does the date report say about hope? Like, I feel like sometimes people feel very hopeless about dating these days. What does the data show us that is actually hopeful?
If I could share some hope with the daters,
Mhm.
I guess what I want them to walk away from the report with is the idea, the feeling, the sense that even when dating feels hard, there are things about dating that are tried and true. So the checking in with one another in between dates, things like holding hands that makes us feel reassured or sitting closely to one another, we can rely on that no matter how much technology changes, no matter how much the global world feels chaotic. We can rely on things in dating as our compass for how to build connection. And so for I hear a lot from daters, they're like wondering if they're doing it wrong. And so I'm just here to affirm that you're not. You're doing all of the things. And if you continue to lean into those small private displays of consistency, then you're definitely moving toward the kinds of connections that sustain long term lasting healthy relationships. So I have a lot of hope for daters out there. And this report just gives me more of it because the opportunity to slow down is just one that I think is going to benefit our younger generations, even beyond millennials and Gen Z.
Mhm. Totally agree, and I really appreciate that, and I agree. I think there is a lot of hope out there, and, what I take from this is, like, there are easy ways to stand out. You don't have to do backflips to stand out in today's dating pool, you know? It is
Yeah,
truly just a slow, steady kinda wins the race, keep showing up.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. People want that so much.
they do, and Mo, this has been such an amazing conversation. I really appreciate your energy and all of your insight. Where can people find you?
I've been enjoying this too. You can follow me on Instagram at loveoutproud. And then my website is themoire.com if you want to find out more of where I am on the internet.
Perfect. Well, thanks again. This has been amazing.
All right. Thank you.
So, what did you think? What are your thoughts? Drop a comment on Spotify or shoot me a DM on Instagram at dating.intentionally. For me, I personally love that there is real data around this question deficit that we're all facing right now, where people are just not asking questions on the apps, on dates, through texting. It's like, what's going on? But it's a real problem. The data shows that. So you're not going crazy if you're like, why aren't people asking me questions? This is a real thing. Also, I hope that this inspires you to get really clear on what you want because I think that this report showed that clarity builds chemistry. It's really the fastest way to getting what you want, right? Is just being very clear about it. No mind games, no mental gymnastics. We're just here to say what we want and show up in a way that aligns with that. And yeah, I found this conversation really inspiring. I hope you did too. And I want to thank you so much for listening. Thank you for trusting me. Don't forget, you're doing great. And if you know someone who maybe needs help navigating dating or a confidence boost, share this episode with them. And if my show has helped you, a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify goes a long way. Once again, I'm Talia. This is Dating Intentionally, and I'll catch you next time.